Salem woke to a silence that felt unnatural and heavy. The courthouse bell rang without any human hand touching it. The sound echoed like a warning that no one understood yet. The town's early morning fog clung to the streets like wet cloth. People stepped outside with uneasy expressions and tired eyes. Something about the air felt permanently changed. Inside the courthouse, the judges gathered with forced seriousness. Their faces showed cracks of fear beneath their authority. No one wanted to speak first about the missing prisoners. Rumors spread faster than footsteps through narrow streets. Some claimed the women had escaped through witchcraft. Others whispered that Salem itself had taken them back. In the prison below the courthouse, the cells stood wide open. Chains hung loosely as if recently disturbed by unseen hands. The cold inside felt alive and watching. Guards refused to enter the lower corridors again. They spoke of whispers coming from inside the stone. None of them could agree on what they heard. A priest arrived but hesitated at the prison entrance. He said the air felt spiritually broken and wrong. Then he left without offering prayer. The investigator arrived before the town fully collapsed into panic. He studied the empty cells with quiet intensity. Something about the disappearance felt deliberate rather than chaotic. He noticed faint symbols burned into the prison walls. The markings were not random but carefully structured. They seemed to form a repeating pattern of intent. As he touched one symbol, a strange warmth pulsed outward. It felt like the stone was reacting to him directly. He pulled his hand back in immediate shock. Above ground, the courthouse filled with arguing officials. Accusations replaced logic as fear grew stronger. No one could agree on what truly happened. The investigator requested access to sealed records beneath the courthouse. Reluctantly, the officials allowed him to proceed. They did not want to descend with him. The records room below was buried in thick dust and silence. Old documents lined shelves like forgotten memories. The air felt heavier the deeper he walked. He found names of the accused written long before trials began. This discovery made his thoughts turn uneasy and uncertain. It suggested something planned rather than spontaneous. Each name appeared tied to land disputes and ancient references. The connections were too precise to be coincidence. Something had been tracking them for years. A retired clerk confessed quietly about altered records. He said the court had once hidden entire sections of truth. His fear made him stop speaking suddenly. The investigator realized the trial may have been guided. Justice may have been a cover for something older. The idea made the room feel colder. Beneath the records room, a hidden passage revealed itself. The walls there were not made of normal stone. They seemed carved from something older than the town. He descended slowly into the underground chamber. Each step echoed like it was being absorbed. The darkness below felt intentionally deep. The chamber walls were covered in repeating symbols. They matched those found in the prison cells exactly. The pattern suggested a single source behind everything. At the center of the chamber lay a circular formation. 9 empty marks were carved perfectly into stone. Each one corresponded to a missing woman. The investigator felt a growing pressure in his mind. It was not physical, but deeply psychological, as if something was recognizing his presence. Whispers began forming around him without direction. They spoke fragments of trial, testimony, and fear. The voices overlapped into unbearable noise. The stone beneath him seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. It reacted to every thought he tried to form. Reality felt unstable in that space. He realized the town above was not separate from below. Salem was built directly over something alive. The structure itself was part of containment. The 9 women's names were etched into the chamber floor. The carvings were still faintly warm to touch. It felt like they had just been completed. The investigator understood they were never meant to escape. Their disappearance was part of a process. Something beneath Salem had collected them. Above ground, panic transformed into open chaos. The courthouse was no longer a place of law. It had become a room filled with fear. Magistrates argued over impossible explanations. Some believed mass hallucination had spread through town. Others feared divine punishment. The storm above Salem intensified without warning. Lightning struck in unnatural patterns across the sky. It felt coordinated rather than random. The prison beneath remained untouched but altered. Every lock had opened itself simultaneously. Yet no physical damage was visible anywhere. One guard claimed the walls were breathing slowly. No one believed him until they saw the movement themselves. Then he refused to speak again. At midnight, all sound in the prison vanished. Even footsteps became completely silent. It felt like the world had paused breathing. The investigator continued deeper despite rising fear. He felt drawn toward the center of the chamber. Something was waiting for him there. He found evidence of gatherings predating the trials. These were not legal proceedings, but ritual patterns. The court had unknowingly continued them. A journal described an entity beneath Salem. It was referred to only as the listener. It fed on fear and collective belief. The more Salem feared, the stronger it became. The trials had strengthened it over time. Justice had been its disguise. The investigator realized the 9 women were chosen deliberately. They were part of a sequence, not victims of accusation. The system required them. The chamber began to react more violently now. Symbols glowed faintly across every surface. The air felt like it was tightening. Shapes formed in the darkness ahead of him. They resembled the missing women, but distorted. Their presence felt incomplete, yet aware. One figure stepped forward without making sound. Its face shifted between human and something unknown. It called his name without moving its mouth. The voice came from inside his mind rather than the air. It told him he had always been part of this. The realization shook his entire sense of self. He attempted to retreat, but found no exit. The chamber had sealed itself completely. It no longer functioned as a path. The walls seemed to rewrite their structure around him. Stone shifted like living tissue. The space was no longer stable. The investigator understood the truth too late. Salem had not lost the women at all. It had completed something through them. Above ground, the town continued living in ignorance. But every person felt something watching from below. Their dreams began to change. The entity beneath Salem finally responded fully. It did not speak in words, but in understanding. The chamber itself became its voice. It revealed that Salem had never been a town alone. It had been a seal built over something ancient. The trials were part of its maintenance. The investigator stood frozen as the presence closed in. The chamber no longer felt like stone or earth. It felt like awareness itself. And deep beneath Salem, something finally opened its eyes completely.